Therapy headquarters community. Hope everyone is having a fantastic week. Today, we're talking about maybe one of the most important topics that we've discussed so far within our podcast that some people just resist at all costs. We're talking about numbers, making sure that you're tracking the right metrics and looking at the correct numbers within your business. Because what we're finding time and time again is businesses failing because of decision fatigue. This decision fatigue happens when you're making so many different decisions that aren't moving the needle within your business, and you're starting to get burnt out and worn out because the efforts that you're making aren't leading to the results that you want within your business. And so if that is you, if you are spinning your tires and your business is not moving, the only problem that you actually have is that you're working on the wrong problems, and that happens because you're not properly managing, analyzing, and acting upon your business metrics. So today, we're talking about the 5 most important KPIs and metrics that you must be tracking as a cash physical therapist, at least as a starting point. Ben, how you feeling today, man? I know this is your zone of genius. You are one of the most meticulous people I've ever met when it comes to tracking your metrics. That is a skill that I had to learn over time, but you've been tracking since day one. So tell us a little bit about your story when you were first getting started. Like, before we share what the 5 metrics actually are, is this something that you just did from the get-go just because of who you are, or is it just something that you learned?
No, it's something that I learned, and it's something I actually initially resisted during the first year as well. Some people resist much longer. Like, we have some clients that start with us, they've been in business for 3 or 4 years and they haven't even tracked a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So started a little bit earlier than that, but still I resisted at the beginning because I was like, this shit doesn't even matter right now. I'm only seeing, 5 to 10 patients. Like, there, you miss out on one. If you only got so many amount of leads, you've only got so many amount of patients, you don't convert one person, it's going to skew your entire numbers anyways, and just its big swing. So it's like, there's just not a whole lot of data to pull from it quite yet, just because of sheer numbers and whatnot. But I wish I would have started doing that earlier, just to get in the habit of doing it, even though I wasn't going to get a whole lot of as much information, just because there's not as much data when you're starting out. It's just getting in that habit of doing it is what I wish I would have started doing sooner. But I started doing it about I think it's right around the 9-month mark of being in business. I started really tracking these numbers and getting a pulse on it. And a lot of it stemmed from decision fatigue. I was tired of having to make decisions within my business based on what I thought might be going on with the business. Versus now I just look at numbers and it tells me exactly what we need to do. Oh, we're at this number, we're at this metric, we need to hire. Oh, we're not getting as many people scheduled for initial evaluations. All right, well, this metric's off. We improved this. We're going to fix that, right? Instead of there's a lot of peace of mind that comes with it too.
100%. And it's so tedious and so annoying that people resist it, myself included. We didn't start really getting very serious about tracking our metrics until, we're 6-7 years into business. And every single decision we made, it was made off of my gut of just what I think is going on and what I think we need to do. And the result of that, we did find success. And so I didn't have any burning problems that forced me into tracking my metrics. But what happened when I did start to have that success is I would plateau, and it was followed by these perpetual feast and famine months, because I would do one thing and it would work really, really well, but I wouldn't really understand why it worked. And so I would do this thing. We'd get an influx of sales. I would see that we were profitable, and it was great. And now it's things slow down. I do it again and again. And as I started to build my team, I didn't have the ability to, in the visibility within my business, to be able to see why can't we break past this ceiling? Why are things working? Why are things not working? And when I came to working with my teams, I couldn't train them. I couldn't inspire them. I couldn't set real good goals for them to keep them engaged and keep them excited about doing their work, because they didn't have a North Star. They didn't have something to guide them, to tell them that they were on track or off track. All we knew was the business making money. And it ended up with us, riding out a good 2 years without us being able to break through our revenue ceiling. And so we got freakishly obsessed with now tracking our metrics. Now we have full clarity on every single problem that we need to solve within our business and the order in which we need to solve them. So before we share the 5 metrics, and Ben, I'll you can read off what these metrics are, but if you are, again, spinning your tires and you see just a never-ending list of things to be solved and problems that need to be fixed, and you're not quite sure why you're successful, and you're not quite sure what it is you need to be working on next, this is the first and only thing that you need to do. You need to block off time on your calendar every single day to go in and plot down your numbers, because the more that you do it, the more you do the tedious stuff, the more clarity you have, the more fun business becomes, because instead of guessing and doing trial and error, you have a very, very clear path of like, okay, out of these 2,000 steps, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Because the beauty about metrics is they all feed into one another. And when you have them all mapped out, it's very clear which one is the leading indicator that's going to best solve the problem at hand. And so what are the 5 KPI metrics that cash physical therapists need to be tracking, Ben?
Yeah. So there's the thing too, is like, you want to just start out with these 5. There's way more that you should be tracking. But what we find too is, like, if we just give you guys a sheet of everything that you need and a list of every single thing that you need to track, you're not going to do it. You're going to get overwhelmed. And so that's the thing too, is you don't even need to start with these 5. I would even say start with 3. Pick 3 of these things. Get good at tracking these on a monthly basis at a minimum, ideally weekly on a lot of this. So again, don't get overwhelmed with it. Choose 3 out of these 5 to start, and then add on another 2. And then you can listen to other podcasts when we talk about more KPIs and whatnot, and other resources we got. But anyways, it really starts with 1 would be lead volume. Like, how many leads are coming in, right? How's our marketing efforts going? Next one would be, how well are we doing with taking care of the leads that we have? Are we actually taking care of those leads and getting them scheduled for initial evaluation? What's our conversion rate from lead to initial evaluation? Next one is initial evaluation to a plan of care. How many people that are coming in for initial evaluation are we doing a great job with, that they want to continue with care with us there? Okay. The next one is average visits per plan of care, or lifetime value. These are kind of interchangeable. The lifetime value is essentially how much is an individual spending when you acquire a new patient, how much are they spending on average with you when they come in, right, for a plan of care. Okay. But the one that's tied really closely to that we track as well is the average visits per plan of care. How many visits are patients doing with you on average, right? So if you got somebody that's only doing 3 visits with you, that's not a very good number. For us, we aim for at least 9. Okay. That allows us to have a LTV, or lifetime value, of over $2,000 per patient. Okay. So that's a big thing that I see a lot of people struggle with, is their LTV and their average visits per plan of care. They might be getting people in the door, but they're not sticking around very long. And now you're just kind of thinking, I need more new patients. Okay. So that's another thing. So with those 4, I'll talk about the last one here in a second, but I want to talk about how those 4 play a factor into things. So you've got your leads. Okay. You've got a lead. Now what's the next step? You need to get them scheduled for an evaluation. We've got a metric to see how well we're doing with that. Next one is, now they're in for initial evaluation. Are they continuing on to the next step, which is the plan of care? We're tracking that. Now they're they're investing in a plan of care. How long is that plan of care actually occurring for? Right. So we're tracking step by step. And we know, because that's the thing too, is by tracking this stuff, you are going to know what is the actual issue. Versus if you're not tracking this, you might be thinking, oh, this is the issue, and you try and fix something that doesn't actually need to be fixed. And you actually fuck that up. And now that's an issue, and you even address the right issue, right? So you need to make sure that you are addressing. This allows you to figure out what the actual issue is, and then you got to figure out how to fix it as well. So
right,
those four or 5, and the last one is profit, pre-tax profit margins, and what you're at with that. So I encourage you guys to read Profit First, that book that can kind of guide you. But overall, as you scale your business, you want to be around that 30% profit, pre-tax profit margin as well. So those are for those 5. But curious, Jordan, if you've got any others that you think might trump those, or what are your thoughts?
No. I mean, those are definitely the most important ones when people start out. And I think people got to understand, it's like, there are certain targets that we go for, like our lead to initial eval booking rate. We want to be above 50%. We want that closer to 60-70%, depending on what stage of business you're in. That does kind of trickle down a little bit towards 50% as you learn to scale with paid advertising and other marketing channels. But at the end of the day, like everyone's metrics can look very, very different and still be massively profitable. And so it's not always about like hitting the same target that other people have. At the end of the day, it's looking at like, what's your profit margin look like? Because your conversion rates could be way off. But if you have really good systems for nurturing and converting those leads, but you have really good back end sales, then your target lead volume might look very, very different from one clinic to another. And so don't get so obsessed about like different targets. Get really obsessed with just like understanding like, where am I profitable and which lever should I be pulling to increase that profitability over time. And so a lot of people like they track their metrics, but they don't really understand how to make decisions based around those things. And so to help everyone better understand, like once you're tracking these 5 KPIs, key performance indicators, if you are pretty new to tracking your numbers, each and every one of these metrics falls within a different bucket or business mechanism within their practice. And so there's 5 core functions of every single practice. There's lead acquisition, lead nurturing, sales, fulfillment, and retention. And so if you go through the 5 metrics that Ben and I just laid out for you, they all fall into one of those buckets. And so if you're seeing it's like, okay, our profit looks good and our sales conversion rates look good, then most likely we have a lead acquisition or a lead nurturing issue. And so we can start to see it's like, okay, we know that we're getting a good number of leads, but we're not getting a whole lot of bookings. Now we know that we either have a lead nurturing problem where we're not pre-framing our leads in a way that's getting them excited to work with us, or we have a sales issue on the front end where we're not properly diagnosing problems for the prospects that we are talking to, nor are we setting the right expectations to get them, again, excited to come in for our premium level services. And so when we're looking at these numbers, we're not just looking at the KPI themselves. We're looking at the mechanism that this KPI indicates the health of. And so that's how we're deciding. It's like, okay, we have a low number of leads. Lead acquisition is our problem. What is the lowest hanging fruit that we could do right now to not only generate more leads, but how can we systematize that so that this doesn't become a recurring problem, so that we can permanently solve this problem? And so all of the metrics that we just said go in order. If you have a lead acquisition problem, there's no sense in working on your fulfillment strategy to increase patient lifetime value. If you have a lot of leads, but a lot of them are booking, it doesn't make sense to focus on retention. As we start to track our metrics, we see a natural order in which to solve our problems, and it's easy to assign which one of the 5 functions this KPI falls under. And once you have that label to it, it's much easier to start to come up with ideas and start to do research of like, okay, how could I potentially improve this metric? And so once you're tracking this stuff, running a business is actually quite simple. It's no different than supporting and treating a patient. Like if a patient comes in the door, you don't just make an assumption on what their actual problem is just based off of what they tell you. You take them through an actual assessment. You get some data and then make an assumption based off that data. And then you start implementing different tactics and strategies to improve that metric. And if you're not treating your business like you would treat a patient, then odds are you're not getting the outcome that you're looking for.
Right. That's a great analogy. It's like, yeah, have a patient walk in and you have no idea. You haven't done an assessment. They haven't even talked to the patient on what's going on. And you just automatically start, I know they got an injury. Let's start working on the knee. It's,
right.
Right. I think it's a really great analogy to use. Like you want to do that with your patients. Why are you doing that with your business? So.
Right. And for most of the people that are listening, like treating a patient is now like second nature. Like you can probably treat shoulder pain or back pain pretty darn simply. You can figure things out and you know what the problem is quickly, and you know what potential solutions are going to improve their strength or their range of motion or reduce their pain within that given area. And so the reason that you're good at that and you have confidence in that is because you've repeatedly analyzed the data. You've repeatedly collected data points, so you know exactly what you're looking at and you understand what different levers are going to adjust and change that metric. And all you have to do to start getting really, really good at diagnosing your business and working on the right problems is be very, very consistent with tracking and looking at your numbers and asking the right questions. But if we're not tracking those numbers, how on earth are we going to ask the right questions? And I think that's why so many people like have such bad shiny object syndrome, because they don't know what their problem is. And so anything that has like a cool promise at the end of it, they're just grasping at straws, hoping that that's going to be the thing, when all they really need is 2-3 months of good data. And it's going to be it's going to be staring you in the face what the actual problem is. Now you're equipped to go have an informed discussion with someone who's further ahead than you. This is when you can do the right searches online and find the free information you need to move the needle in your business. But so many people are desperate for help that they'll trust just about anybody because they're just unwilling to take the time to just sit down and track this stuff.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. So it's very simple when you break it down.
Right. So when it comes to like tracking your metrics, Ben, I think a lot of people maybe get hung up on like, how do I track this stuff? What's the easiest way to track this stuff? And they almost get in their own way with just all the different ways that you could go about doing all the different tools that are out there. But what did you do when you first got started?
Yeah, I mean, luckily the EMR that we used has a great PT Everywhere. Has a lot of reports that you can generate and create Excel spreadsheets, download documents, download the data, play with the data, stuff like that. So that's it's really just going in and, with our clients, we have it mapped out for them and help them out with that. But I didn't have that, and so it was just kind of trial and error. You just go in and you kind of play around with the different tools. Everybody's got different EMRs. That's why I think it's really important that an EMR is just not an EMR, but also can help populate this data for you, and that you can actually run reports on these different metrics, which is great. So it was more so trial and error. It took me a lot longer to figure out how to do it, but it did serve me now that I know exactly how to figure it out. I'm not relying on somebody else figuring out my numbers for me, right. which is nice too. So long story short, just have to go and kind of go in there and play around with it if you don't want somebody else to kind of guide you on it.
Right. But if you're just getting started and you don't have an EMR yet and you're doing the kind of hustle bootstrapped way of launching your practice, Google Sheets is just fine. I can't tell you how many times we've changed our method of collecting data, changed our dashboards, changed our scorecards that we're using on an ongoing basis. That has made so it's okay for this stuff to change. You just need to start. And to give you some ideas on how you can go about to start tracking this stuff, each one of the departments within your business, whether you're solo or have a team, each core function of your business should have a scorecard. And you can make this something that's really, really simple. You can have something like PT Everywhere that's going to do a good job of tracking it for you. Or you can just have like a simple form that like a Google form that exports it into a Google spreadsheet for each of your departments. Marketing department, how many leads did I get from the website? How many calls did I get from Google business profile? How many referrals did I get this month? How many patients did I get from my workshop initiatives? And you can start to see as you collect this, it's like, great, out of these 5 different acquisition channels, this is the one that, okay, maybe this one didn't get me as many leads, but the leads I did get have twice the patient lifetime value as these other channels. And so that's going to indicate, it's like, great, I'm going to spend twice as much time working within this channel versus these other channels, because the people who come through there are worth more to the business. And if you're not tracking this stuff across your different acquisition channels, it's easy to fall into the trap of, well, I got way more leads from doing workshops with this person as opposed to writing blogs on my website that got really good quality traffic to the site that got more people to opt in. And you might end up working on the wrong strategy within your business because you're not looking at the whole picture. You just saw that you got more leads from over here. You're going to go focus on that. Versus if you focus on the patient lifetime value, you can figure out where your effort is going to have the highest ROI within your business. But that it's really obvious when you look at the numbers and you break it down like that. But when you're running this just off of your gut and your intuition and making emotion-based decisions, that's how you get trapped and stuck in business and you feel like nothing you're doing is actually working. And that's when you give up and you have to pick up PRN hours, or you have to, just work part-time in some other job while you try to figure this thing out. It's a tough place to be.
Yeah, it's mentally exhausting as well when you can't physically see progress and you're just based on, oh, how am I feeling today? And that's going to influence on how you feel like the business is doing as well, right? So versus numbers are numbers. They're going to tell you exactly what's going on, no matter what kind of day you're having.
I think a lot of people, especially like we are the best at running Facebook ads for cash clinics. Like our campaigns absolutely crush it. We change people's lives doing this stuff. And a lot of people are terrified to run ads because they don't know their numbers. They don't understand the patient like their patient lifetime value. And when you realize that every single patient who walks into your clinic that ends up converting on a package with you spends $1,500, $2,000 with you. Once you know that, now you know what you can spend to profitably acquire a patient. Because as long as you're spending less than the patient lifetime value, you are running a profitable business. And so a lot of people don't take the action required to get to where they're trying to go because of the ambiguity and the lack of visibility within their own business. And so once we were able to show people, it's like, hey, like your average patient is worth this much. We can spend this much to acquire a patient. Then they're really excited about investing into ads and they grow so much faster because they realize the truth that, and this is something that people got to like show you. It's a truth that needs to be experienced to be fully understood. It's that whoever in your market, whoever can spend the most to profitably acquire one patient is going to win every single time. And that's why optimizing patient lifetime value is so crucial, and having great retention and great fulfillment and getting great outcomes is so important, because now you can spend more to acquire a client and you can just flood your entire industry, your entire market with your advertising and your content and become that go-to influence within your community. But you can't do that. You can't fully scale until you understand that metric.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is like, that's a big reason why you need to charge what you're worth too. And that's another big advantage of charging the highest in your area, because you're going to have more money to be able to throw at ads. And if you don't charge enough, you're not going to be able to run ads profitably. And that's where a lot of clinics are at. And so because they're not advertising, now your costs for advertising go down. So you can, like you said, you can really flip the market if you're charging what you should be, and have a good lifetime value and charging more than what everybody else is in the area.
100%. And it actually reminds me, because there's another side to that same conversation around prices and what you can put out there to really grow and scale your practice is whenever we're running advertising, we occasionally get someone who is really, really resistant to offering a discounted evaluation or any sort of discount to get patients in the door. And that makes sense, because at face value, it's like, I'm going to make less money. I'm going to bring in the wrong people. There's a lot of thoughts that are definitely like good arguments to not doing that. But when you track your numbers, and we've done this over and over and over again, when you run advertising where you are charging full price, that is going to produce a lower number of leads based on your ad budget, right? Something that's more expensive is going to get fewer leads, which means that you need to spend more to acquire each lead that you're getting, right? And so what we found over and over again is that the overall profitability of charging less on the front end for your business creates astronomically higher profits, because you're getting charging full price on the front end. You get fewer leads in the door. And sure, your conversion rate on those leads might actually be higher. You're getting so much fewer opportunities to sell packages, which leads to less profit. And so when we're advertising and we're tracking all of our data, it becomes really obvious that, holy smokes, when I charge $67 for an evaluation, I get this many leads and I convert this many of them, and I end up selling way more packages. And so business cannot be made off of emotions. It has to be based off of the numbers that are in front of you. And so many people get their egos and emotions all caught up in making their decisions, especially when it comes to marketing, not realizing that they're actually self-sabotaging themselves. You have to follow the numbers. And so what we recommend for everyone here, if you are not doing so already, get a Google Sheet, get an EMR like PT Everywhere, get a CRM like our software CM Hub that can track your different marketing channels. How many opportunities are coming in? How many of them are booking? How many of them are showing up? How many of them are buying packages? How many visits are they staying on for? How much money are they spending? Get something in there to start tracking this stuff. Otherwise, just use a Google Sheet, do it manually. But I will say your goal should be to automate your data collection. PT Everywhere does a really good way of doing this because you might get busy. You might, be exhausted at the end of the day and forget to track your metrics. This does need to be something that you do religiously. And automated data is good data and clean data. So that's the ultimate goal. Be able to get to the point where you don't need to spend a whole lot of time tracking your metrics, whether that means that you are using a CRM or some tool to automate it, or you have a team and it's their responsibility to track their metrics and complete their scorecard on a weekly basis, with that data all being aggregated into some sort of dashboard that makes it easy for you, the leader, to be able to view and manage and make strategic decisions based off of, as well as managing and inspiring and coaching your team.
Yeah, and the thing too about using a CRM is you remove human error from it too when trying to calculate it yourself. So it's win-win.
That's right. Awesome, everybody. If you have any questions on tracking your metrics, how to track metrics, where to find this data, how to analyze this data, how to make decisions, and once you understand like what your problem is, if you're not quite sure how to optimize that metric and which levers to pull, feel free to reach out. Ben and I would be more than happy to take a look at your metrics and point you in the right direction so that you can turn the corner in your business. So just to recap, the 5 KPIs that you need to at least start with if you're a cash physical therapist is your lead volume. How many leads are you getting per marketing channel that you have? How many of those leads are converting into evals? How many of those evals are converting into plans of care or packages? What's your pre-tax profit? How healthy is the business? And your patient lifetime value. So you understand how good of a job you're doing on fulfillment. You understand how much you can profitably spend to acquire a patient, and ultimately how quickly you're going to be able to scale and grow the practice because you understand how much cash flow you have coming in per patient. So Ben, any last minute advice?
Nope. And last thing is, like, some of you guys might feel like it's not the right time to do it because you're early on. And the more data that you have before you hire somebody on, you guys might not be thinking like, oh, I need to hire anytime soon. But you will, most of you will eventually have to hire on. And the more data that you have to set expectations with those employees, the better that they're going to perform because they have a North Star to aim for. And if you're hiring A players, they want to have something to aim for. So having that data from the KPIs and a long list and long track record for that is going to help your case when setting expectations with employees as well. So just something to add in there.
Amen. Being great at business isn't about being a creative genius. It's about being a good researcher and analyst.
Right.
Guys, if you got value out of this podcast, make sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. We don't run any ads on this show. All we ask is that you share it if you got value out of it with someone that you think would get value out of it.